All right, let's go. All right, good evening. This is the Cortez City Council regular meeting. Today is Tuesday, February 11th, 2025, and the time is 7:30 p.m. I'd like to call this meeting to order and ask you to join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, can we have the roll call?
Gopher.
Here.
Haven. Brule.
Here.
Dobry.
Here.
Randall. Lewis.
Here.
Medina.
Here. Note that Councilmember Randall and Mayor Pro Tem DeHaven have been excused from this meeting, but we still have a quorum tonight. So do we have approval of the agenda?
Madam Mayor, I move that council approve the agenda for February 11th, 2025.
Second.
Motion made by Lewis and seconded by Dobry.
Lewis.
Aye.
Dobry.
Aye.
Gopher.
Aye.
Brule.
Yes.
Medina.
Aye. All right, we're going to move on to 2 on our agenda, the consent agenda. The listing under consent agenda is a group of items to be acted on with a single motion and vote. This agenda is designed to expedite the handling of limited routine matters by City Council. Either the public or a council member may request that an item may be removed from the consent agenda at the time prior to council's vote. I'll read the list and then I'll ask if a citizen or council member wishes to have any specific item removed from the consent agenda for discussion. A, approval of the council work session / special meeting and agenda minutes for January 28th, 2025. B, approval of the expenditure list for February 11th, 2025. And C, approval of a change of premises for Paragon Business Investments, LLC, DBA Gopher Food and Fuel, located at 2410 Fairway Drive, Cortez.
Madam Mayor, I move that council approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion made by Dobry and seconded by Lewis.
Brule.
Yes.
Lewis.
Aye.
Gopher.
Aye.
Dobry.
Aye.
Medina.
Aye. All right, we're going to move on to 3 on our agenda, public participation. There's no limit to the number of speakers, although public comment will be held to an overall time limit of 30 minutes. Speakers have a time limit of 3 minutes per person, may only speak once, and may not cede time to another commenter. All right, do we have any public commenters? All right, seeing none, we'll move on our agenda. 4 is presentations. We have none tonight. 5 is public hearings. We have none. 6, unfinished business. We have none as well. So we'll move on to 7, new business. 7A is ordinance number 1332, series 2025, presented by Patrick Coleman, our city attorney.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and Council. Council had asked that staff look at developing regulations for the regulation of what they generally refer to as natural medicine. If you'll recall, a citizen referendum was passed in the most recent election, statewide election. It was entitled Proposition 122, and it legalized natural medicine, plant or fungus-based psychedelic substances that also included psilocybin and psilocin. And I probably butchered the pronunciation of both of those, but in any event, some people call them the magic mushrooms. Most regulatory agencies refer to them as natural medicine. In any event, the amendment to the Constitution allows for local governments to regulate time, place, and manner restrictions on this stuff. The statewide regulatory scheme already regulates certain aspects, and some local governments have chosen to not get into regulating this stuff. I think it's up to the council to decide if you want regulations. What staff is recommending is that you enter a moratorium to disallow anybody to come in and seek a location to conduct any of these businesses that are now allowed under the Proposition 122 without city input. And currently we have no regulations other than our zoning code, which doesn't address natural medicine generally, but it does address certain retail activities. The ordinance that's before you, and I will make a note that the ordinance that was published with the agenda, I've made an amendment, and if you'll look on page 2 of the proposed ordinance, under the second section that's entitled moratorium, I've added language that places this amendment and this moratorium in the code with the marijuana and liquor regulations. And I felt that was probably the best place to put any regulations, including this moratorium, because it has similar aspects to the marijuana and liquor code regulations. So if council does choose to push this ordinance through on first reading, I would suggest that you, in your motion, include as amended, that would include the references to the code section in our current code. But in any event, moratoriums are allowed for local governments. Generally, 6 months is a fairly typical. You get beyond that, and it looks more like you're banning whatever the activity is that is subject to the moratorium. The usual need for a moratorium is to allow the local government to update its regulatory scheme, develop new regulations, or amend existing regulations to address some perceived problem or some new subject matter that may need regulation, which would be the case here. During the moratorium, staff can provide proposed regulations, or council can decide that they don't want to regulate. You kind of have that choice as well. But I think the main goal would be to prevent people from coming in and establishing these businesses without any regulatory input from the city. And with that, I would just suggest that this ordinance, I believe, will accomplish the goal of a 6-month moratorium and allow the staff to research and prepare regulations for natural medicine. If you choose to adopt regulations sooner than 6 months, or you choose to not adopt any regulations sooner than 6 months, you can end the moratorium and allow the status quo to continue. And unless you have questions, that's all I have to present.
I have a question, I guess, for Linda. Linda, have we had anyone who's interested in pursuing a license for this type of facility?
I have not received any calls
Okay.
for that.
And then I guess the other question I would have, Pat, it seems like with marijuana, there was a statewide regulation regarding distance from another facility, from schools, from parks, from churches, et cetera. Does that exist for this as well or not?
I don't believe it does, although that's a fairly common part of the local regulations that I've seen from jurisdictions that have already adopted regulations. So it's something to consider.
I move that council approve on first reading ordinance number 1332, Series 2025, an ordinance amending the code of the city of Cortez, Colorado to impose a temporary moratorium on the submission, acceptance, processing, and approval of applications for licenses or permits for natural medicine healing centers, cultivation facilities, product manufacturing, testing facilities, and any other related license or permit involving natural medicine, which includes, without limitation, psilocybin or psilocin, and set for second reading in a public hearing on February 25th, 2025.
And Madam Mayor, before you get a second, I would ask Councilmember Sproul if he wants to include the amendment that's
As amended.
as amended. Okay, thanks.
Second.
Motion made by Sproul and seconded by Dobry.
Dobry,
Aye.
Lewis,
Aye.
Sproul,
Yes.
Kiefhoffer,
Aye.
Medina.
Aye. All right, we're going to move on to B on our agenda. 7B is appointment to the Planning and Zoning Commission. Linda Smith?
Good evening, City Council and Mayor. Earlier this evening, council interviewed an applicant for the urban planning and zoning position that's been vacated by Katrina Weiss recently. So council can appoint Mr. Fryhofer, or we can keep receiving applications. The position is still open until filled.
Okay.
I was very impressed with Mr. Fryover, so I'd like to move that council appoint Richard Fryover to the Planning and Zoning Commission for a 3-year term to expire on April 2028.
Second.
All right, motion made by Sproul and seconded by Lewis.
Dobry,
Aye.
Lewis,
Aye.
Sproul, Kiefhoffer,
Aye.
Medina.
Aye. All right, thank you and welcome. Oh, did we lose him? Okay. All right, we're going to move on to 8 on our agenda, draft resolutions and ordinances. We have none. So 9 is city attorney report.
Only thing I have to report is to remind, as I mentioned earlier, at the next council workshop, I will be doing a presentation on the process for amending the charter. And I'll also make some reference to the city code, which there's been some discussion about the need to amend the city code, which is different than the land use code. So that will be on, I believe, your agenda for the next workshop in 2 weeks. And that's all I have.
All right, thank you. We're going to move on to 10 on our agenda, city manager report.
Yeah, good evening, Mayor and Council. I do not have an official report for you this evening in the interest of trying to keep our meeting short, but I would like to announce to you that by next meeting, 2 weeks from now, you should have your monitors in front of you, so hopefully you can see the presentation. So thank you, Jay Rohr, the IT, for getting that squared away for us, but expect that, and that concludes my announcement.
Awesome, thank you. Okay, we'll move on to city council committee reports. 11 on our agenda. The mayor's report on workshop is 11A. We interviewed Richard Fryover, who we just appointed to the Planning and Zoning Commission to fill that spot. And then we had a presentation on the housing needs and obstacles in Cortez from our City of Cortez Housing Coordinator, Lisa Bloomquist. And there's a big gap between the cost of building a house and the wages in our community. And so the city's gonna look into like, how do we close that gap and make houses affordable for the wages that we have here. And then council member, in our council general discussion, Councilmember Sproul brought up the wages of city council and when the last time they were changed, and we discussed kind of what that would take, and got an update about it's in our charter, but what would the process be to take it out of our charter, and we'll learn more about the charter in our next meeting from our attorney at the workshop. All right, so then we'll move on to other board reports. We can start with Councilmember Kiefhoffer.
We did not have a quorum this past Thursday.
The next golf course advisory meeting is February 28th, 7 a.m. at Conquistador Clubhouse.
Oh, I don't have any update.
All right, no other board reports. We'll move on to 12 on our agenda, other items of business. We have no executive session tonight. Public participation, there's no limit to the number of speakers, no overall time limit. Seeing no one in the public, we'll have a motion to adjourn.
I move that we adjourn this meeting.
Second.
Motion made by Dobry and seconded by Lewis.
Lewis,
Aye.
Kiefhoffer,
Aye.
Dobry,
Aye.
Rule,
Yes.
Medina.
Aye. All right, thank you all for being here tonight. Shortest meeting yet.